Do you have traditional costumes in your country?
Well, there isn't actually a single traditional national Polish costume, but the different regions have got their traditional costumes, so you can quite easily tell someone who's from the mountains from someone who's from central Poland. But the thing is that people won't be wearing those costumes on an everyday basis. They will be rather used in celebrations or festivities.
We have lots of traditional costumes, and especially in the south of Spain, they dance flamenco, and they always wear these very dramatic dresses. They're very long and colourful, and it really adds to the drama of the dancing.
We do. The Welsh are very good at having a load of unusual costumes, including a big black bonnet hat for the ladies.
It would have its roots primarily in West Africa, and for the women it would be head wraps. A lot of head wraps, lots of bright colours, lots of reds and yellows. There would be an emphasis on red, gold and green, which has the link to Rastafarianism. And the red stands for the blood, yellow for the gold and the green for the grass.
What cultural traditions are there in your country?
Well, the cultural traditions really vary quite a lot from region to region. But the one interesting thing about the tradition in Poland, which is quite different from what happens here in England, is that at Christmas time, for us, Christmas Eve is the most important day of Christmas. This is where the family get together. And this is also the day when we open our presents.
We have lots of local festivals, especially during the summer. You can travel all around Spain, going to lots of different local fiestas everywhere.
We have a cultural display in Wales called the Eisteddfod, which is a lot of singing, poetry and cultural displays.
From my parents' side, who were based from the Caribbean, there's a great tradition of colour and flamboyancy, linked to the carnivals and reggae music and calypso music.
Are the cultural traditions changing?
I think they are, yeah, I think there is a lot of change. Because the traditional culture is very much rural culture, and with people moving into cities a lot, there isn't so much continuity anymore.
I think they're probably changing a little bit because everyone used to be very involved in them, and now young people don't really want to get that involved, so they're getting smaller and smaller. Like the traditional fiestas are not as popular anymore, but they're still happening.
I don't think the cultural displays in Wales are changing because they've existed for so long, but they're just being reinforced slightly as time goes on.
Yes, I think it's inevitable because of, if you like, black people born here in this country, and they're losing touch with their roots, really.
Do you get nervous in job interviews?
Not
really. It depends on how well I've prepared for the job interview. If I've read up about the company and done lots of research and understood what the job specification is, then I try not to get nervous. But sometimes being nervous is a good thing because it gives you a bit of adrenaline to make you think about what you're saying and give good answers.
I'm lucky that I don't have to do job interviews being self-employed.
Sometimes. Slightly.
A little, it depends. I think probably if it's a job that I don't know whether I necessarily want or not, I'll probably be quite relaxed. And then further on, probably would get more and more nervous, yes.
Have you ever had a bad job interview?
Not really, no. I've had job interviews where I've talked too much or been a bit nervous, but I've never had an interview that's gone really badly.
I have. I've had a very bad job interview for the Navy. It was a 3-day long interview and it was very, very tiring.
Yes, which was a job interview with a group of people. So a group interview, yeah.
Yes. I was overconfident. I thought I knew everything, and surprisingly enough, I didn't get the job.
I haven't, actually, but I was very, very nervous in the job interview, but I did end up getting the job.
How do you prepare for a job interview?
I usually find out as much as I can about the company and background information, and then I find out about the job itself, how it fits into the other departments within the company and what the structure is, and try and think about what kind of questions I might get asked.
I read around the company, find out more details, and then read on current affairs maybe.
Find out a lot about the job, first of all, what they're probably going to be expecting from me, and then think of some good answers for the questions that might be thrown at me.
I would research exactly what the job entails. I would research the company. I would probably do a short rehearsal for the interview, perhaps in front of friends or family.
I'd probably get members of my family or some of my friends to ask me questions at home.
Alfred Hitchcock was one of the most famous and most successful film directors in the history of cinema. He directed more than 50 films over 60 years. He was born in East London on the 13th of August, 1899. Hitchcock left school early and went to work in films. While he was working, Hitchcock met Alma Reville, and they married in 1926. Alma would work as a film editor or script editor on all of his films, and they would be married for over 60 years. None of these British film studios exist anymore. Even then, the British film industry was small. Hitchcock began as a designer, but within 5 years, he had risen to director. And he began to make the thrillers that would eventually make him famous. Soon, producers in Hollywood noticed him. In 1937, Hitchcock, Alma, and their daughter, Pat, went to Hollywood. Hitchcock worked for David O. Selznick. Selznick was one of Hollywood's most successful and most flamboyant producers, and a man obsessed with control of his films. Hitchcock was the same, and though the two men never trusted each other, they made great films. The films won Oscars and turned actors like Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman into stars. In the late 1940s and 1950s, Hitchcock produced and directed his films. Each film was a huge success. Most were suspense thrillers, usually with a handsome star and a beautiful blonde leading lady. And Hitchcock was good at marketing, and marketing himself too. He had always made very small appearances in his films. Now he started to make and appear in his own television series.
The focus of attention is on the birds and Alfred Hitchcock.
By the 1960s, Hitchcock was more famous than the stars of his films. Alfred Hitchcock died on the 29th of April, 1980, in Los Angeles. Today, many film directors try to copy his style, but they are never as clever as the master of suspense. He directed more than 50 films over 60 years. Hitchcock began as a designer, but within 5 years he had risen to director. Most were suspense thrillers, usually with a handsome star and a beautiful blonde leading lady. Alfred Hitchcock died on the 29th of April, 1980, in Los Angeles.
Do you have any plans in the next few months?
I'm hoping to go on holiday at some point. We're aiming to go to New York, maybe for a week or 2 weeks.
Yes, I'm going to try and get fit. I'm going to walk more. I'm going to swim more. I'm going to eat more healthily. And I'm going to try and go to the cinema more.
I plan to open another floor of my restaurant and then plan to have a very busy winter.
I'm going to Brooks University in October and I'm learning the guitar.
Yes, I do, is to prepare myself for being pregnant.
Yes, I'm planning to start up my own design company.
What do you think you'll be doing in 5 years' time?
I don't really know. It's possible I'll still be working in my current job, or I might have left, or I might have gone and worked abroad, or I don't really know. I don't make 5-year plans.
Hopefully I'll be retired. Hopefully I will be fit and healthy, and hopefully our son will be very successful because he's studying to be a journalist and he can look after his dad and I.
In 5 years' time, I hope to be on a yacht in the Caribbean.
I want to be qualified as a music therapist, and I want to make a lot more money than I'm making now.
Hopefully being at home, being a mother.
In 5 years' time, I think I'll be successfully managing my own company.
What kind of holiday do you like?
In the summer, what I really like to do is go to a beach town, either somewhere in France or in Spain that's got a really nice beach, and sit and read a book. In the winter, I prefer to go on city breaks and do cultural pursuits, visit museums, buildings, galleries, that kind of thing.
I quite like holidays where there's something completely new. So I like going to different places, different cities and things like that. Even within the UK, places I've never been to before, and finding out about them for a short time. But I do like going further afield. I think it's nice to go to a different continent and see something that's really out of your comfort zone, something that's really not what you normally see.
I like holidays where there's lots of options. I don't really like just lying on the beach because I get a bit bored. So I like to be able to visit museums or go somewhere interesting or taste wine, for example.
I like holidays in the sunshine, I suppose, and something where you can do lots of activities. And I don't like holidays where you just sit around the whole time.
I like going to places that I haven't been before, and I like experiencing the individual cultures of that specific place.
What kind of holiday did you used to have as a child?
We didn't really go on holiday an awful lot as a child. When we did, we would tend to go on long-haul trips for, say, 2 weeks to America, or we'd occasionally go to Cornwall for a week camping, but we didn't have a regular holiday.
I used to go to the Irish seaside, which, if anything, is colder than the English seaside. And I used to go swimming every day and catch fish and potter around the rocks and explore and do things like that, and with my friends and my family. So they were very ordinary seaside holidays, but I loved them.
It would tend to be activity-based, so my parents would take us walking or cycling or canoeing, quite often in France, sometimes in Germany too.
We often went camping in France. We'd drive down and set up our own tent.
As a child, we went on quite exotic holidays, to the States quite a bit, and a bit of Europe. We haven't really holidayed in the UK though.
This is a monument in Dublin city centre to the many people who died in the Irish potato famine in the 19th century. In 1845 and the years that followed, the potato harvest failed. At the time, potatoes used to provide 60% of the nation's food supply. about 1 million people died from hunger and disease, and many more people were evicted from their homes in the country and forced to emigrate. In total, about 2 million Irish people emigrated in the years from 1845 to 1855. Many people left Ireland via Liverpool and England for the east coast of North America, where they hoped to find a better life. The voyage across the Atlantic was often dangerous in itself. The ships were not comfortable or large, so families lived on cramped decks, and many people died from diseases on the journey. The ships landed either in Canada or in the American ports of Boston and New York. For people who survived the journey, life in America was not much better. The new immigrants were not welcome. Our position in America is one of shame and poverty, wrote one immigrant. And there were many of them. Between 1820 and 1860, over a third of all immigrants into the United States came from Ireland. But attitudes to the Irish slowly changed, and today, Irish Americans are very proud of their ancestry. They can claim at least 2 presidents as their own, President John F. Kennedy and President Ronald Reagan. This is St. Patrick's Day in Boston, President Kennedy's hometown, and one of the best days to visit the city. It is a huge celebration for Irish Americans with plenty to see, including marching bands and street performers, and it is a day when everyone wants to be Irish. In 1845, and the years that followed, the potato harvest failed. Many people left Ireland via Liverpool and England for the east coast of North America. Between 1820 and 1860, over a third of all immigrants into the United States came from Ireland. This is St. Patrick's Day in Boston, President Kennedy's hometown.
Do you try to speak the language when you visit another country?
I do. I speak French anyway, so if I go to France I always speak the language. But I try and pick up a few local phrases or try and learn vocabulary for items of food so that I can order food and drink in their language.
Yes, I do like to try to speak the language. I'm not always very good, but I think if you try, then people will give you a chance.
Try very badly. I'm going to learn, I think, to do better.
No, and that's mainly because not because I wouldn't want to, but because I would not be very good at it.
What cultural differences have you noticed when travelling?
Generally, the biggest difference I notice is usually to do with eating and drinking. Generally, I noticed that, for example, on the continent they eat later, they tend to go out later, evening entertainment starts much later and goes on till the early hours of the morning, whereas here we tend to kind of go home at midnight. They have siestas as well, which we don't really have here.
In some countries, I think formality and politeness are really important. So in Japan, for example, and Vietnam, where I was last year, doing things properly and introducing people were very, very important.
Well, I've been to places like China, where there's quite an obvious cultural difference. People have a different idea of privacy, I found. But also, just in France, there are cultural differences with regards to drinking and things like that.
I haven't really noticed any that I could mention.
Do you think you have a good diet?
I try to have a good diet. I try to eat healthily. I usually have 2 or 3 pieces of fruit every day, and I try to have vegetables. I don't eat a lot of red meat. I eat a lot of fish and chicken and things like that. So I try to keep those things that I know you should restrict down a bit.
Probably not as good as it should be, but I do try and eat healthily.
Yes, I eat lots of fresh vegetables and good quality meat once or twice a week.
On the most part, I think I have a good diet. But occasionally I eat kebabs and those sort of things after a night out.
Yes.
What could you change about your diet to be healthier?
I think I should probably not eat quite so much cake or chocolate. I mean, I try very hard to be very good, and sometimes I sort of make it all the way through the day, and sometimes it comes to 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm just so hungry I have a bar of chocolate or cake or something, which I shouldn't.
I think I could change the amount of cheese I eat. I really, really like cheese, but I know it's not very good for me. Quite a high fat content.
Probably less sugar.
I think I would eat less sugary food.
Less fat, definitely.
What did you eat when you were a child?
Actually, I ate a lot of meat and a lot of vegetables, and of course, being Irish, quite a lot of potato, which is a sort of cliche, but we did eat a lot of potatoes. But I think in my family, my father would have thought it odd not to have meat at every meal, so we did. We didn't have puddings, we didn't have a lot of desserts and things like that, so that probably was good.
All sorts of things, really. I wasn't really a fussy eater. I liked fish fingers and baked beans, obviously, and chicken Kiev was a real favourite.
As a child, I ate a lot of crisps, fizzy drinks and sweets.
My mum was quite strict with my diet, so I had 3 square meals, balanced diet, carbohydrates, meat, vegetables.
Quite exotic things, lots of different things. My mum is a very good cook, so we've had lots of different things while I was growing up.
I don't have clue, sorry.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know, maybe something about food?
Hoodie? No.
I don't know.
No, I don't know.
No.
Hoodie, maybe this. Hood. Hood.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not sure what a word means, the easiest thing to do is to look it up in a dictionary. This is the second edition of the full Oxford English Dictionary. It was published in 1989 in 20 volumes with 22,000 pages and more than 615,000 words. It weighs nearly 70 kilograms. Work started on the first Oxford English Dictionary in 1879. The editor, James Murray, thought it would take 10 years to complete. But he soon discovered that this was unrealistic. After 5 years, his team, which included his 11 children, had only managed to reach the word ant. Eventually, Murray succeeded in publishing the first part in 1884, with the last part following over 40 years later. The problem is that English is a living language and it's always changing. If you look up hoodie in the dictionary, published in 1989, it isn't there. But today it's frequently heard in conversations, seen in newspapers, and used on TV and in films. So there have to be constant updates of the dictionary. These used to be published as printed supplements, but now there is an easier, more cost-efficient and more user-friendly way to keep the dictionary up to date. The dictionary is online. Just type in the word, and there it is. A hooded sweatshirt, fleece or other garment. A young person who wears a hoodie and is typically regarded as socially disruptive. There are definitions, pronunciations, spellings and examples of the word in use. Keeping a dictionary up to date is a complicated and expensive process. About 60 people are working on it here in Oxford. But how do they decide which new words go in the dictionary?
The Oxford English Dictionary uses 3 methods to try and identify new words. We use the corpus, we use the reading programme, and we use the internet. A corpus is a collection of words from a language, from newspapers, novels, even song lyrics, and they can all be collected together so that people can then search it to try and find new words. I think the Oxford English corpus currently has about 2 billion words, so it's extremely large. And the most common word is the. The reading programme is run in Oxford, and we have a number of readers from throughout the world who are reading novels, newspapers, things like that, to try to find new words. Once they've found these new words, we can put them into an electronic database, which we call incomings, and then editors are able to search through that to try and find new words to put into the dictionary. We use the internet, as the internet has hundreds of databases which we can search again to look for new words. It's also very useful because it will tell us how many people are using the word to make sure that lots of people are using the word. We can also use it to try and maybe find the earliest example of a word in English.
So that's why hoodie is now officially included in the dictionary online. It first appeared in text in 1991, and the next time a complete OED is published, it will make it onto the page as well. It was published in 1989 in 20 volumes with 22,000 pages and more than 615,000 words. After 5 years, his team, which included his 11 children, had only managed to reach the word ant. Keeping a dictionary up to date is a complicated and expensive process. About 60 people are working on it here in Oxford.
And the most common word is the. What's the most remarkable place you've visited?
I'd say the most remarkable place I visited is probably Death Valley in the States. That's part of a desert between California and Nevada, and it is probably one of the most inhospitable places you could live in. It's the hottest place on earth, I think.
Well, several years ago I visited East Africa and travelled around Ethiopia and Kenya, and I found that to be just stunningly beautiful and a really, really fascinating place to be as well.
Petra in Jordan, which is an incredible ancient city built into the rock.
I was in Mexico at the pyramids in Teotihuacan,
right near Mexico City, and that was really impressive to go there and climb those pyramids.
How used to travelling are you?
I'd say I'm pretty used to travelling. I do quite a lot of flying, so I'm used to long-haul trips as well. I'm used to airports, that kind of thing.
I'm very used to travelling. I do a lot of travelling in my job. So I'm very used to flying, for example. I'm used to staying in hotels for 1 or 2 nights abroad. So very used to it, yeah.
I travel quite often.
Very used to. I used to live in Germany, actually. I grew up in Germany when I was a child, and so I've traveled all over the place. Very fortunate to have done that.
Are you worried about climate change?
Probably not as I should be, not as worried as I should be. I don't think about it as much as some people do, but I guess, yeah, I am quite worried about long-term damage to the planet.
I am worried about climate change, yes. Possibly not as worried as I should be, but I do fear for the future of the world, for my children's sake mainly, yeah.
I am worried about climate change. I think so far the effects haven't been too bad, and we still have time to change.
I am, and I think that we should be careful with how companies emit certain gases and whatnot. But at the same time, I think you can take it to an extreme, and people go overboard and say everything is global warming. So.
How much TV do you watch?
I watch around an hour of TV every day.
I probably watch too much TV. I guess I watch at least an hour or more every day, actually. Usually when I get home from work, after I've had dinner, we put the TV on and watch it for 2 or 3 hours sometimes.
I watch probably a couple of hours a day, watch the news while I'm having breakfast, and then watch some TV shows in the evening. Maybe watch a film at the weekend.
Not a lot. I watch the news and football, occasional film, but I don't watch a lot of TV at the moment. I've got a couple of small kids.
Do you think people watch too much TV?
I think people do watch too much TV.
Yeah, I think they do, especially children. I think if you're not careful, your children can end up watching 5 or 6 hours of television every day, which is probably not the best thing.
I think some people watch a bit too much TV. I suppose it also depends what kind of TV you're watching, whether it's educational or just trash.
I think people watch more than they used to, definitely. And now that people can watch on their laptops and things like that, yeah, people probably watch a bit too much.
What positive and negative effects can TV have on people?
I think TV can be relaxing, and it can be a good way to share information. But I think it does stop people from doing other things like exercise.
Well, positive effects. I think television can be educational for children, particularly. But I would think that the negative effects outweigh the positive effects. That people tend to stay inside too much and maybe don't go out and play sports like they would otherwise. It can be a very passive kind of experience.
Well, one positive effect is that it can educate you, so you can learn about things that you wouldn't otherwise know about. And negative effect, I suppose, that you just spend too much time TV and not spend enough time talking to people and going out and about.
Well, I think that it can have an effect on people's attention span. I mean, people are used to flicking channels all the time, so basically people don't concentrate like they used to.
Queenstown is the extreme sports capital of the world and the ultimate destination for the traveller who's keen on adventure. And if you're not averse to taking risks, you can try anything here, from parasailing to skydiving. Over 1 million visitors a year come to this small town, which is situated in the dramatic southwestern corner of New Zealand's South Island. And there are few places as naturally beautiful as Queenstown. The town lies on the edges of the crystal clear Lake Wakatipu, which is one of the largest and deepest lakes in New Zealand. It has stunning views of the Remarkables mountain range, which is one of only 2 mountain ranges in the world to travel directly from north to south. This area hasn't always been a tourist destination where people jump off bridges for fun. It used to be a quiet sheep farming district. Then, in 1862, gold was discovered in a river near Queenstown. The discovery attracted thousands of people to the area, and suddenly it was at the centre of a gold rush. But the town didn't have time to get used to its new popularity. By the late 1800s, gold was no longer being found in the rivers, and people started to leave. By 1900, Queenstown was nowhere near as big as it had been just 10 years earlier. After the gold rush was over, the first tourists started coming to the area. Famous walking routes were established for visitors who wanted to explore the unspoiled wilderness on foot. Some of these paths, like the Milford Track and Routeburn Track in the nearby Fiordland National Park, still attract thousands of walkers every year. Easily the most relaxing way to enjoy the stunning scenery around Queenstown is by taking a trip on the beautiful old TSS Earnslaw. The Earnslaw, which first crossed the lake in 1912, travels at a leisurely pace so the views can be properly admired. Nowhere near as peaceful is a trip on a speedboat. It's much harder to admire the views travelling at speeds of up to 85 kilometres per hour. The Shotover River, which runs through deep canyons to Lake Wakatipu, is the location of one of Queenstown's most exciting experiences, the Shotover Jet. The jet has operated since 1970, and over 2 million people so far have taken this thrilling trip. The Kawarau Bridge on the outskirts of the town is where the bungee jumping phenomenon started in 1988. At only 43 metres high, the jump isn't as tall or as scary as many of today's modern bungee jumps. But it is the original one, and it still attracts over 300,000 jumpers a year. There are tandem jumps for people who are afraid of jumping alone. And if you're really wary of taking risks, you can just watch. It's still an unforgettable experience. Over 1 million visitors a year come to this small town, which is situated in the dramatic southwestern corner of New Zealand's South Island. It has stunning views of the Remarkables mountain range, which is one of only 2 mountain ranges in the world to travel directly from north to south. The Earnslaw, which first crossed the lake in 1912, travels at a leisurely pace so the views can be properly admired. At only 43 metres high, the jump isn't as tall or as scary as many of today's modern bungee jumps. But it is the original one, and it still attracts over 300,000 jumpers a year.
How would you describe your personality?
I'm fairly outgoing, friendly, usually. Willing to try new things. Although I do have my moments when I like things to be quiet and peaceful, and I'd rather spend time on my own, for example.
I'm quite sociable. I like to spend a lot of time with my friends. I work quite hard. Fairly easygoing.
Friendly, I think. I think I'm quite a friendly, outgoing person.
Do you have lots of acquaintances or a few good friends?
When I was younger, I had lots of acquaintances and also lots of people I would consider to be close friends. As I've got older, probably my circle of acquaintances is still very broad, but I have fewer really close friends, maybe.
I have about 8 or so really good friends, and then a wider set of more general acquaintances.
A few good friends. I've lots of acquaintances, but a few really good friends that I catch up with most of the time.
How important to you is your social life?
Again, when I was younger, it was very important to me. I find now that my family life is more important than my social life. But, of course, I still enjoy going out with friends and that kind of thing.
It's quite important. Yeah, it's quite high on my list of priorities. I think friends are quite important, especially where families live a long way apart. Your friends kind of become your second family.
Oh, it's very important. Yeah, friends are always there. You know, you can always pick up the phone to a real friend and they're always there, whatever you've done. So friends are very important. Yeah, really important. I mean, I like to get out and about as much as possible and meet new people.
Do you know first aid?
Not very much now. When I was younger, I learnt first aid, and I knew a lot about it then, but that's quite a long time ago now, and I don't think I remember very much now.
I did a course when I was a kid, but I've forgotten most of it.
Not really. I've never been trained in first aid. I know one or two things to do with first aid, but I've never been trained properly in it.
No, I have no idea. Just if something happens to someone, then I will just let them where they are and try to call someone who knows.
Have you ever given or received first aid?
I've never received first aid, actually. For giving first aid, I've only really given first aid to my children when they've fallen over and I've put a plaster on their leg, or when they've cut their finger, for example. So that kind of thing, yeah.
I've received some. A couple of years back, I walked through a window, and luckily there was someone there who knew what to do, because, I was bleeding quite badly.
No.
No, never.
Have you ever had to stay overnight in hospital?
No, I haven't, actually. I've had to go to hospital a few times for various things, but I've never actually had to stay there overnight, so I guess I've been quite lucky.
No, I haven't. No. Fortunately, anything that's happened to me has never been too serious.
Yes, when I was a child. And also when I had my daughter when she was born.
I don't remember. Maybe once. I think I have had a surgery, so I had to stay overnight, but that's about it.
When people talk about New York City, they are usually referring to Manhattan. But Manhattan is by far the smallest of the 5 boroughs that make up New York City. The others are Queens, the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. New York City has about 8 million residents, with just over 1.5 million of them living on Manhattan Island. Another 2.5 million commute to Manhattan daily. In the past, the city has had its problems. In the 1980s and early 90s, New York's crime rate was so high that it affected the city's global reputation, and tourist numbers were in decline. In 1990 alone, there were 2,245 murders in the city. But after years of investment and a lot of hard work, the city has been transformed. In 2007, there were fewer than 400 murders. If the authorities hadn't been able to reduce the crime rate, perhaps the city wouldn't have become the tourist attraction it is today. Between 1991 and 1997, the number of tourists rose by nearly 40% to 32 million a year. By 2008, New York was the most popular destination in the USA, with over 45 million visitors. Wherever you live in the world, you probably recognize Manhattan landmarks like Times Square, the Brooklyn Bridge, and the Empire State Building. It's a city that's familiar from hundreds of films and television programs. And it's not just the New York skyline that's well known, it is also the attitude of the New Yorkers. New York is known as the city that never sleeps, and it's famous for the straight-talking, no-nonsense attitude of its residents. From the impatient cab drivers who fill the congested streets of downtown Manhattan, to the financial traders of Wall Street, New Yorkers are usually in a hurry. The city has always been a place for go-getters, ambitious people who know what they want, rather than dreamers. In fact, if you walk around with your head in the clouds in this city, you're likely to get hit by a cab. But away from the hustle and bustle of Broadway and the crowds of Times Square, there's another side to the city. Areas like Greenwich Village are home to a different kind of New Yorker. The Village, as it is known, has been a neighborhood of writers and artists since the 1950s. Today, it's an area full of small boutiques, cafes, and bookshops. But the Village residents are still renowned for their creativity, intellectualism, and tolerant attitude. In this city of 8 million, the people are more diverse than in almost any other city in the world, and that's one of the things that makes New York such a fascinating place to be. But after years of investment and a lot of hard work, the city has been transformed. Between 1991 and 1997, the number of tourists rose by nearly 40% to 32 million a year. The city has always been a place for go-getters, ambitious people who know what they want. In this city of 8 million, the people are more diverse than in almost any other city in the world, and that's one of the things that makes New York such a fascinating place to be.